Hey, so I understand you wanted to put some parts together for a gaming desktop, is that right? Okay, gotcha. The gaming laptop not quite cutting it anymore. Okay, yeah. They're a lot better value than they used to be a couple of years ago, but you know even they have their limits. So a good gaming desktop is it's the next logical step. So I actually wasn't going to dive right into parts and everything today, particularly because there are some new launches on the horizon. AMD is going to have their 5000 series processors, and they're going to have their 6000 series, I think it is, video cards, and that's just in the next couple of months. So I don't think it makes too much sense to try and part something out now. So, excuse me, rather than do that, I've got some questions I can ask you, and we can try to get a better idea of exactly, what you're looking for, what you want, and by the time the parts come out, we'll be able to make sure that it's going to do everything that you need it to do. So, the first question I have here then is in regards to budget. So, did you have a number in mind for that? Okay, yeah, $750 is a really good point to start at. A lot of people will tell you that what you want is like 1,000, and that's a really good, bang for the buck. And they're not wrong. I think a lot of people are turned off by that number because it's $1,000. But either way, it's quite good. It's a good place to start. Plus, given the fact that the newer parts are going to come out for a little while, and the more you save, the better the thing that you'll get at the end of the day. So I think we'll say $750 then, with some wriggle room to 1,000. We'll just give it a range. Okay. Okay, I'll just say pending. Another big question then is, we'll start getting into what kind of stuff you want to do with it. So you could build something that is just for gaming, or maybe you want to build something that you can do gaming as well as some sort of content creation or something, right? Because if you decide that you want to do strictly gaming, then that'll really primarily affect the processor that we end up picking at the end of the day, because some processors are going to be better suited to gaming, and other processors will be better suited to a combination of both. Or if you just, if money becomes no object in a month or two, then you could just get something that really straddles the gap. But again, that's going to kind of depend on where we are in a month or two as far as hardware that's released and available. So I went off on a tangent there. Do you want to do something besides gaming? Do you want to stream? Do you want to create videos? Anything like that? Okay. All right. So I'm assuming Twitch, maybe YouTube. Okay. Yeah, they both generally have the same requirements. So if you want to stream to Twitch, or you want to record and render videos for YouTube, you are generally talking about the same hardware. I'm going to assume you have your own camera and stuff. That's kind of a separate thing. We can go over it at some point, but for the sake of keeping things relatively simple. So Twitch and YouTube. So you're talking about some content creation. That's very good to know. Next up is how much RAM do you think you'll need? So I know you've been gaming, you have your laptop. How much RAM do you have in that? Okay, yeah, that's about the standard these days. I remember when 8 gigabytes was the standard, and I tell you what, those were simpler times, weren't they? Anyway, the new console generation came out. They had a bunch of memory, and 16 gigabytes is about the standard now. So, yeah, great. Yeah, 16. When it comes to content creation and things like that, 32 gigabytes might be better. I've done some Twitch stuff, I've done some YouTube stuff, and I find that 16 gigabytes is usually all right. Yeah, I won't go too more into that because I know, you've used Chrome before, you know how many tabs you typically have open and so forth. So then we'll just stick with 16 gigabytes, some DDR4 memory. Probably just go 3200 megahertz, something like that. That's about a standard speed for a decent desktop processor to be able to handle. Storage situation. So what do you have in your laptop? Okay, yeah, that's a pretty good combo. So a 128 gig SSD and a 500 gigabyte hard drive, that's pretty good. That's not bad. For what you can do nowadays, though, I might just go with a 1 terabyte SSD, or even since you're going to be doing content creation, I think I would actually recommend a 256 gigabyte SSD and a 1 terabyte hard drive. Just to give you a little bit more space, a little separation. With the 256 gigabyte SSD, you'll have Windows on there. I'm assuming you're using Windows. You can use Linux. You can dual boot if you want, I suppose. That gets a little bit complicated, but typically a 256 gigabyte SSD. What was I saying? Yes, a 256 gigabyte SSD plus a 1 terabyte 7200 RPM hard drive is what I typically go for. So you've got your mass storage and you've got your SSD with a little bit of extra space if you want to do some different stuff. And again, this is all fitting into that $750 to $1,000 price range. So I think it's important to consider. You can always add more, of course. So we'll say 256 SSD and the 1 terabyte. Yeah, that's 7200 RPM. The speed of the drive is very, very important. Like hard drives are slower than SSDs as it is, so you definitely don't want to get a slow hard drive because that will be very, very slow. Now, how much do aesthetics matter to you? Okay, yeah. I mean, I think that's a pretty good baseline for most people. It can't be ugly. Do you know if you want... You can get a lot of pretty well-priced cases these days with a window, be it acrylic or tempered glass. Is that something that you would want? Okay, yeah. So you want to be able to show it off, and if you do eventually get something kind of flashy, then it would be nice to be able to appreciate it. Or you could also go, no tempered glass or acrylic is really the only ways to go, unless you're getting like a bench or a test bed kind of, but that's different. And what about like RGB lights and stuff like that? Because you do start to lose a bit of your budget. I'm going to assume okay. Because it just starts to cut into the performance if you spend too much, So that's our aesthetics taken care of. Do you have a monitor? Okay. Yeah, a monitor would be pretty difficult to fit into not impossible, but difficult. And it's always better if you have some kind of display that you can use. But yeah, so, okay. Yeah, no, that's probably fine, for starters. If you've got like a 32-inch TV, I think a decent amount of people start off and just say, okay, great, this is the screen that I have. And then, of course, when you get some better hardware down the line, you can maybe spring for a nice monitor or something. So, yeah, I think it's a decent way to go. Plus, again, you save so much out of your budget right now. You build a decent machine. It just makes sense. If you can avoid spending your initial budget on something like that. How much does quietness or loudness, as it may be, matter to you? So if you have your desktop, maybe you put it up on your desk. It's right next to your head, and you start up Crisis 3, and it starts screaming. Do you mind the screaming? Is the question I'm getting at. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. If you do have a good pair of headphones, then you might be okay. And I guess speakers comes into peripherals as well, if that's something you wanted to budget for. But if not, if you're happy with the headphones, then that should be fine. Yeah, most hardware isn't like deathly loud or anything, but I think it does factor into the decision-making process. It's like, okay, if you want something quieter, then maybe you'll want to go with aftermarket fans, like, straight out of the gate, go get some Noctuas or something. So it's something to consider, definitely. Like if you're doing, voice recordings or you're making videos for YouTube and you do your recording at your desk, then quieter fans and stuff like that might make more sense, might be more of a priority, but it depends. And the fans are one of the easiest things you can always swap out later on. So not that big of a deal to get nailed down right now. What are the most demanding games that you're playing right now? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, that's fair. So obviously you can run Among Us on anything. Fall Guys, I feel like kind of fits into that category. I've not actually played it before, but I feel like it fits into that category. And then maybe one of the new Call of Duty games. And okay, well, let me write some of these down then. Yeah, Phasmophobia. Yeah, I've not played it yet, especially because it's $15 and we have to get the whole gang on board, and it's, I don't know. I mean, Among Us was different. I mean, oh my God, it was $5. One person bought it for like a whole group or something almost. It's just cheap. You can get everybody in on it. Everybody's got $5, unless you have bigger problems, in which case you shouldn't be buying video games probably. But, basically everybody has $5, so really good pricing on that. Really good game. Hours of fun. So, given your list here, I do notice that, Fortnite and Cyberpunk, well, those are really on two different ends of the spectrum, aren't they? Fortnite isn't particularly demanding, as long as you have like an NVIDIA graphics card. They tend to play nice. There's RTX, ray tracing and stuff like that, which we'll get to a little bit later. But yeah, from the NVIDIA side, then I'm going to recommend something like a 2060 Super. And from the AMD side, I'm going to recommend, I think, a 5600 if that's comparable. But again, there's the 30 series from NVIDIA, and then AMD's going to have some new 6000 series stuff later. So that's why we're waiting. We're not parting anything out because everything's about to change. So, peripherals. Do you have like a mouse and keyboard? Can you bring your own stuff, or do you need to factor that in? Okay, cool. So you just need a keyboard, right? That makes sense. How do you feel about mechanical? Okay, yeah, you can get some cheaper stuff like a Ducky, or there are some cheaper Logitech ones, or Razer. There's a couple. Yeah, so we can work that in. So you're definitely gonna need mechanical keyboard. And how do you feel about 10 key? 10 key or 10 key less? Yeah, the little numpad portion of the keyboard. I almost dropped my pen. Okay, so yeah, then we'll go keyless. Now, depending on your actual gaming space, your desk, or wherever you have your laptop set up, you might even be talking about a considerable space savings, if you will. You know, you're going to have more room on the right-hand side if you don't have your 10 key. So that's something to keep in mind. I think most competitive players will do that for the sake of being able to have your hands closer together, or having the keyboard more center, or whatever. Now, when it comes to purchasing, how do you feel about mail-in rebates? Yeah, I when they work, presumably they work. I've never gotten one to work. And it really just becomes like a pipe dream, I think it's something to really consider before we get into parts, because, you put this list together, and then you get to the mail-in rebates, and it's like you saved like $150 or something in mail-in rebates, but how many of those are you actually going to be able to get back? I don't know. I've just not had good luck with them before, like at all, so... okay, all right, I think so we'll avoid them for now, because I think it's unrealistic to expect, and you have to go through so much legwork. Like, if you're going to do it, it'll work, but for now we'll say we won't do mail-in rebates. And what about retailers? Yeah, of course Amazon would be like the best. Typically, in terms of like not paying for shipping. If you have a Prime account, then not paying for shipping, maybe getting access to some other deal or something, coupons, and then there's if you have a store card, then you get cash back or whatever. That's something to consider, right? Okay, yeah. So we'll go Amazon, unless you have maybe unless there's a deal somewhere that's like really good. Then so we'll say Amazon. Unless there's a deal. What is in your laptop, by the way, as far as the graphics card, processor? Okay, yeah. That's pretty typical, an NVIDIA Intel combo, which is quite fine, Do you have any particular brand loyalty or anything like that? Are there features on the NVIDIA or Intel side that you're using right now? Okay, yeah, GeForce Experience, that's pretty good. That's pretty handy. Especially with its recording features and using the onboard video encoder. It's all right. I can understand that. I know AMD does have an alternative, but I really prefer the GeForce Experience software personally. But, bang for the buck, AMD's usually got that covered, so... yeah. So you'd prefer an NVIDIA card then, is what I'm hearing? Okay. Yeah, I mean, once you kind of get into that software suite, it's kind of nice. It's simple, it's clean, it works, it gets the job done. Shame you have to make an account for that, though. It used to not be that way. Anyway, what do you think about RTX? Yeah, I think it was pretty clever of them to allow you to turn that on without having an RTX card. That way you can really see what you're missing, Yeah, I mean, honestly, coming from the 1060 that's in your laptop, the 2060 will be a nice jump. And, if we can work into the budget, a 30 series card. I forget when the 3070 is supposed to be coming out, but that could be something to consider. Or the AMD alternative, the 6000 series. But we'll really just have to see. But if you prefer, NVIDIA for what they do have, then it makes sense to just go with that. Then you'll get RTX as well, so that's nice. Performance metrics. So I had this down. Basically, do you care at all for monitoring things like temperature, performance stats? Are you making sure that your card and your laptop anyways as cool as possible? Do you want to do all the tweaking and everything, underclocking, undervolting, anything like that? Okay, yeah. So in the case of laptops, it is pretty handy, quite important, I think, in fact. So basically with the latest generation of Intel processors, those things run hot. They just do, and people have started to develop tools like throttle stop in order to reduce the amount of voltage going into the chip, in order to bring the temperature down, in order to maintain higher clock speeds for longer and get better boost clocks and stuff like that. It's quite integral, I think. So if you're into tweaking like that, or I can tell you about it sometime, we can undervolt your laptop in the meantime or something like that, then we can absolutely look into that. But basically it's like, if you are interested in all of that, I can show you what software to use, what kind of overlays you want to use, that kind of thing. Let's see, what else do I have here? Okay. Upgradability. How concerned are you with that? And the reason that I have to ask is, quite honestly, this kind of comes down to an AMD or Intel sort of thing, unfortunately. So if you bought an i7, like case in point, I bought an i7 7700K and a Z270 motherboard. This was a couple of years ago, of course. And it was my first Intel part, my first high-end processor from Intel, and that was it. I bought a $200 motherboard, and I bought a $300 processor, whatever it was at the time, and there was nothing to upgrade to. So the next time that you have to buy a new processor, right, like I kind of need my desktop right now, you have to buy a new motherboard as well, and hope that it's compatible with your memory, which usually it is. Memory's not usually so much a concern, but are you okay with having to maybe buy a new motherboard in one generation? Like let's say you have a 10 series processor, you already have the top of the line. Are you okay with buying a new $200 motherboard when the next generation comes out? Yeah, so, excuse me, if you go with AMD right now, they've had for the last couple of years, they've been on the same socket, so you can keep your same motherboard. Now that's changing a little bit with the most recent generation coming up. But yeah, 1, 2, 3 generations on the same socket, same chipset is pretty nice. So better track record with being able to keep the same socket and motherboard, essentially, is what we're talking about. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty important. But again, this will. And the other thing to consider as well is we'd probably be going with a Ryzen processor, just for the sake of having all those extra threads, the cache. You might not get literally the bleeding edge of gaming performance, but the trade-off for having the extra hardware threads and stuff like that is quite significant when it comes to content creation. So we'll put it down as probably a Ryzen part, and we're definitely going for some level of upgradability in the future. Wireless or Bluetooth, is that important at all? Yeah, with wireless headphones and stuff like that being common. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, wired is always better if you can swing it. And Bluetooth, you can just get a little adapter, a little $10 dongle or whatever later on, so not that big a deal. I think that's all I have for you right now. Oh, red, green, or blue. Yeah, the three colors, red, green, or blue. No, just pick one. It's pretty simple. Your shirt's red. Do you want to pick red? It's just red, green, or blue. That's all it is. Blue. You're sure? No, you're not saying that because my shirt's blue. That needs to be your decision, is it? Okay, green. Okay. No, there's no wrong answer. It's just green. Yeah, no, I'm just writing the word green. Yeah. No, it's a nonsense question. It doesn't mean anything. It's just it's just a color green. That's all. Okay. So I think that's all I have for you right now. And a little bit later on, we'll go ahead and start up a PC part picker list for you. And we'll go over some prospective stuff. Maybe get you back a price tag. And wow, green. I didn't expect you to pick that. I really did not. Your shirt's red. I'm wearing a blue shirt. No, like I said, it doesn't mean anything, but just surprised. All right, color green. Green color chooser. Yes, I'll see you around.